The Laura Ingraham Show.
Yeah, Spicer's been put in a tough spot here. I mean, he has not been put in the easiest spot with this perpetual story about the wiretapping. And yet he's sent out there day after day to put the best face on this story. And it's hard because you have Devin Nunes, who is, people think he's a real straight shooter, and I like him a lot. He's the head of the House Intel Committee. By the way, he's very concerned about the leaks and the unmasking of American names that are caught up in a foreign surveillance. And he's already got, put the marching orders out for that to get to the bottom of that, which I love. Nunes is a great guy. And so he already came out and said, well, look, the Republicans are just so over this story. They just want it to be behind them. You got Nunes, you got Ryan, even Cotton is like, well, can we go on to healthcare now? Can we do infrastructure? But the media, they want to stay on this issue because they think they got Trump dead to rights. And now the story is that it's not, Obama didn't order an actual wiretap. He wasn't in there, saying, okay, put the wires on this phone and get this handset recorded. But it was more of a metaphor, wiretapping as a metaphor. And so the media, unsurprisingly, by the way, happy St. Paddy's Day. Drew is 75% Irish. There's not a stitch of green on him. Not any green. Did you wear the colors of the Italian flag, James?
Well, I don't want to do a counter protest to St. Patrick's Day.
You need the orange, white, and green. Is that it for the Italian flag?
No, it's red, white, and green.
Red, white, and green. Red, white, and green. Okay, you could have worn a little.
The
green.
orange is Irish.
Irish. Okay, you got it. So these Republicans are just like, they're so over this story, but the Trump folks keep kind of bringing it back to life. It's the wiretap story that doesn't go away. Now, I happen to think the bigger story is the broad surveillance that we end up doing of Americans, which Pete Hoekstra wrote about. We're going to get into this. The title of the piece is, Can Americans Trust Their Spies? And I would say doubtful, because we know that American names, investigations into foreign entities sweeping up American names are then leaked to the press. So I don't trust the spies. No, I don't. I'm sure there are great people working in the intelligence agencies, but at least the people who have been leaking to the New York Times and the Washington Post, I don't trust them. No, I don't at all. So the Republicans are now watching this whole thing play out. They're trying to make sense of this healthcare deal, which seems to be getting worse by the day. A lot of folks wondering, why didn't we start with infrastructure? Why didn't we start with something we could all get some wind at our back? But we started with a tough thing, healthcare. Some people are second-guessing the strategy. I get that. But if you're Spicer, what do you do here? What the media types, they're not letting this go until Donald Trump comes out and says, I was wrong. If he was wrong, they're just not going to let this go. Let's just put that out there. They're just not letting this go. And when does Trump ever come out and say he was wrong? He just doesn't do. It's not the kind of thing he does. But the Acosta thing just kept going on and on. I went out and got some cottage cheese to eat my lunch. Came back, it was still going on.
Okay, I get it. Somehow you seem to believe that you have all of this information. You've been read in on all of these things, which I find very interesting.
Well, I have been read in by the FBI.
Well, no, you're coming to some serious conclusions for a guy that has zero intelligence. Class. Well,
give me some credit.
I'll give you some.
A little intelligence, maybe. But no,
clearance.
What I'm saying is that
I wasn't done. Clearance.
Those two panels.
Maybe both.
Well, come on. Those two panels have spoken with the FBI director.
And then, should we do one more of these riveting parts of this exchange? See, at one point, Acosta said, well, this has been settled, that there was no, and he's like, well, how do you know it's been settled? And then, we got to the British intelligence issue, which had been raised by Andy Napolitano in is it a column, Drew, or was it a comment?
Both, actually. He's got a column right now in the Real Clear Politics, and he actually said it. I don't know what show it was on, but it was on Fox.
Okay, so that in fact the British intelligence agency was helping surveil the Trump campaign. So that was thrown out there the other day by Napolitano. I mean, this is getting more interesting by the moment. It didn't seem to me that was well reported. And I love Napolitano, but he said he had sources that told him that.
Told Fox.
Yeah, told Fox. And now they had to clarify that, but...
On Fox News on March 14th, Judge Andrew Napolitano made the following statement, quote, 3 intelligence sources have informed Fox News that President Obama went outside the chain of command. He didn't use the NSA, he didn't use the CIA, he didn't use the FBI, and he didn't use the Department of Justice. He used GCHQ. What is that? It's the initials for the British intelligence spying agency. So simply by having 2 people saying to them, President needs transcripts of conversations involving candidate Trump's conversations involving President-elect Trump, he's able to get it, and there's no American fingerprints on this.
Okay, so today, a piece comes out. British intelligence agency debunks a story Sean Spicer cited as evidence for Trump's wiretap claims. Recent allegations made by media commentator Judge Andrew Napolitano about GCHQ being asked to conduct wiretapping against the then president-elect are nonsense. They are utterly ridiculous and should be ignored. Well, I'm just playing out every angle. I guess we could say maybe the British aren't telling the truth. I'm bringing this all up for a couple of reasons, not to dump on Spicer. I'm bringing this up to focus us for a moment on what is really important that we get right here. What's really important that we get right are the following things. A full repeal of Obamacare in order for the price of health care and health insurance to start going down in a free market, in a real free market of health care. So people can pick and choose the policies they want or the type of coverage they want. It could be a la carte coverage. It could, whatever people want to do. With it, that will help everybody. Okay? Number 2, we need to do tax reform. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. We have an abysmally arcane tax system that stifles economic growth and that has been an albatross around the necks of small business owners especially, and larger businesses, individuals for years and years. This needs to be done. So we got health care, we have tax reform, we have infrastructure. The infrastructure tab is a big one, but we can certainly see there would be bipartisan agreement to do something fairly significant on infrastructure, especially if we go down the road of having a more sane budgetary process. We probably aren't going to be able to give $54 billion to the military and then have story after story every day about how Meals on Wheels get cut. But these are important. However these things come out, these are really, really important things that we need to do. And I think the longer the administration gets sidetracked, sent down these rabbit holes on these stories about wiretapping or surveillance, I just think behind the scenes, they should just figure out what happened. President Trump has the ability to find out what happened. Bring the people in, the various intelligence agencies, says, look, there's a finite number of people who had this information. I want to know who they are, and I want you to report back to me in a month after you've had a chance to interview all of them. And I want to find out who has leaked this information to the press, how many people are given access to the unmasked names of Americans over whom you do not have the constitutional right to surveil. And we want this done, and I give you 30 days to do it. And then you go about your business, and this will be solved. You'll figure out who's doing this. This is not impossible to find out who's leaking information to the New York Times and the Washington Post. But I think a lot of that is better done behind the scenes, as your narrative is very clear for American renewal, for border enforcement. I left off the border enforcement, the rule of law applied across the board. And that is what we need to do. That's what he campaigned on. All these other issues are going to keep the press salivating and the chum churning in the water. And I get it, but that's not what's going to help this administration. It's certainly not going to help the country. Finding out, as Pete Hoekstra wrote, whether we can trust the people who are apparently spying on Americans, yeah, that's an important question. But you're not going to solve that question in the press. You'll solve that question by having the right people tasked with the right responsibilities to get to the bottom of this. And if you need to pare back certain aspects of the FISA law, the FISA court's jurisdiction, if you need to do that, then I'm sure that they have lots of smart people who can figure that out. But litigating this in the press at this point is not going to help them at all. 855-40-LAURA. Do you agree with me? Pete Hoekstra's piece. The spy world is cloaked in secrecy, but last week's leak of documents from the CIA offers a tiny glimpse into what America's operatives can do. It seems the CIA can hack smart televisions to listen in on conversations, even when the set appears to be off. Smartphones might be less secure than many assumed, and the CIA can supposedly penetrate a computer network and leave fingerprints implicating someone else. Man, these guys are good. Personally, I'm thrilled to hear the CIA has developed all these capabilities. Stealing information from other countries is what spies do. But it's devastating to see details about America's intelligence operations leaked to the press. These kinds of intrusions recently have compromised billions of dollars worth of sources and methods, showing the world, including ISIS and Al-Qaeda, how Washington knows what it does. They have also caused Americans to ask serious questions about their spy agencies. He goes into Bradley Manning, goes into Edward Snowden, etc. But a spy agency that is incapable of keeping its own secrets, what I said on Fox last week, cannot say with confidence that it has effective means of controlling itself. When Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, says America doesn't spy on its citizens, he doesn't really know. He hopes that the internal controls and culture will prevent abuse, but he can't be certain. Well, given the fact that they can't keep track and control of their own information, who can trust this? This is why Donald Trump has got to focus all of his ire and frustration on the solutions here. We need to find out who leaked, prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. You bet they should be made examples of, and then figure out if this needs to be reformulated, if our intelligence agencies need to be corralled in some way, more checks in place, more levels of checks without, of course, hurting our ability to get the information we need to get from foreign sources. It's complicated. It's not easy. But I think a lot of this other static in the background, Spicer versus Acosta and the British, Napolitano, I mean, none of this helps. 855-40-LAURA, do you agree? All right. What are you doing for St. Paddy's Day? Are you going out for a green beer? Did you wear green today? If not, why not? Do you resent St. Patrick's Day? Let's get right into the resentment right off the top of the show on a Friday. Some people who are not Irish are carrying around a deep resentment today. Yeah, they don't like St. Patrick's Day. They're like, why don't we have, Ukrainian Day? Why don't we have the Swedish Day? Why don't we have, and I'm Polish. Where's the Polish Day? We get nothing, as usual. The Poles are always stuck out in the cold. But I am a quarter Irish. My grandmother's name was Lenahan. You don't get any more Dublin, Ireland than Lenahan. It was a very, very well-known name. It is a well-known name throughout Ireland. So my dear grandmother, Marie Lenahan, doesn't get any more Catholic than that. Catholic, Irish Catholic. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA, your reaction to the latest kerfuffle with Spicer and the media. And are we getting off track from what's really important? Don't go away. So, Tim, you're Scottish. I'm Scottish as well. I'm a quarter Scottish, quarter Irish, half Polish. So what happened when you were a kid, and what'd they make you do?
Well, my dad, when he was a kid, his dad required him to wear orange on St. Patty's Day, and I was required to wear orange. Well, I got pinched, and I just hated that day. I hated everything about that day. And I had to wear orange, and I had to justify myself. And why you were not wearing green? Well, I wear orange because I'm Scot. And oh man.
Oh yeah, you're supposed to submerge your cultural and ethnic identity for a day to become Irish. I totally agree with your resentment, and I'm quarter Irish. I wore green. It's kind of green. I don't know what this is. Turquoise. It's just green enough. I'm definitely having a beer for lunch or during the show. This is going to be the fight. I mean, the budget is going to be mean and cruel and awful, and the priorities are just, they're helping the military-industrial complex and not the poor mother who needs to park her kid in front of the TV. You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction. Let's go to Craig Shirley author of multiple Ronald Reagan biographies, bestsellers. His new one is coming out next week. We're going to have him on for a separate segment for that called Reagan Rising. You can order it now, by the way. The Decisive Years, 76 to 80. I can't wait to read it. I have it, but I haven't read it yet because I'm trying to write my own book. By the way, Craig, do you think it's bad if I just take all of your brilliant ideas and rewrite them and claim them as mine in my new book? I'm not doing that. I'm just kidding. How are you?
Not if you pay me. Not if you pay me royalties.
Got it. Perfect. I got it. Okay, I'll work that out with my accountant. I'm just teasing you. How you doing? How you feeling? I heard you were under the weather. You were on a cruise. You got sick. You and Zorin.
Yes.
Tell us what happened. This is more interesting than.
We were on the SS floating petri dish, and we came down with. I'd never been on a cruise before. It was a lecture cruise down the Caribbean. We had a marvelous time, but boy, did I get laid low by some alien malady.
No!
So
when it was a lecture cruise, I mean. Who was lecturing? Were you lecturing or someone else?
Yeah, I was lecturing. Yes, I was to a group of people who want to hear me talk about Reagan and conservatism and stuff like that. So
that's cool.
It was a lot of fun.
But did you determine? Was it something in the water? Was it something at the buffet? Those sneeze hoods are never low enough on the buffet.
No, they're never low enough.
No.
And people's hands touch everything.
No, it's disgusting. I can't stand cruises. Sorry, I know you cruisers out there. I hate cruises. I feel like I want to just jump off the second I'm on a boat. I want to get off the boat. Sorry.
Well, Doreen and I are boaters, as you know, and you've been boating with us, but we're
short
private
cruises.
boaters. We're cruisers. We don't go out on boats that carry 5,000 people. This is our first time and probably our last time.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're back.
It was probably too much of the Love Boat, you know what I mean?
Were you on the Lido deck or the Promenade deck? Did Julie escort you to your room?
The germs loved me too much.
Oh, no. So I'm glad. I was thinking about you're sick and you have this book launching. That's just bad timing. I'm glad you're on the mend and glad you're back and all that jazz.
Thank you.
So I have to talk to you about this because I remember during the Reagan years that when he would submit a budget to Congress, they did a lot of the same things they're doing today in the press to demonize Reagan. It was Ronnie Reagan, right? It was Ronnie Reagan and military-industrial. Talk about the relationship to the president and the budget priorities and the way the media will continue to play this.
Well, they always said whenever Reagan submitted a budget, which he did every year, it automatically was dead on arrival. I mean, as soon as it hit Capitol Hill, they didn't even read it. They didn't even open it up, and they would just say, "Oh, it's dead on arrival." And so I suspect the same thing's going to happen to Trump. Some cards liberals play are just the same ones over and over and over. But I think it's interesting is that he's proposing higher defense spending, and McCain's already out there saying this isn't enough.
Oh my God!
Which is interesting. But we should, as conservatives, we should welcome this debate because there's so much fraud, liberal corruption in the federal budget. How to teach the Chinese to grow pollen and bees and stuff like that. Is that we should welcome this because it gives us a chance to really demonstrate how much corruption there is in the federal budget and how much waste there is in the federal budget and how much just out and out just unbelievable spending for things that just people scratch their heads and say, what the heck is this for?
Right, and I think so much of this is in the framing,
absolutely.
And how the administration and allies of the administration's priorities frame it in the press.
Post.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But frame this in the press.
Post headline, so predictable, is that Trump is to submit budget, poor minorities hardest hit.
Poor minority. That's like a refrain. That's like the chorus of a song. Poor minorities hardest hit. Most vulnerable, imperiled.
Nancy Reagan used to tell a joke at the expense of the Washington Post plan to type. How would the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post report that the world is going to end tomorrow? The Wall Street Journal says, world ends tomorrow, stocks plunge. Mm-hmm. The New York Times reports, world ends tomorrow, see page A37 for details. Yeah. The Washington Post reports, world ends tomorrow, poor and minorities hardest hit.
Yeah, exactly. Reagan faulted.
Yes.
Let's hear from, this is Krauthammer last night on Special Report.
This is a budget like every other one I've seen in the decades I've been here that is dead on arrival at Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill is a huge morgue of presidential budgets. There's not one that actually croaked into life. They all come in dead. They are wish lists. They are expressions of one's interest and a way to respond to promises.
Well, I guess there's something to be said for that. I mean, it's
no,
a start.
Not, because Trump has control of Congress, and that's the difference. He has control of Congress, so he should go for as much as he wants. I mean, he can never have a better time than his first year to strike while the iron's hot.
So on the issue of, for instance, when you talk about PBS, like I talked to Raymond about this last night. He made a couple of interesting points. The local PBS stations, the local stations actually do a lot of programming that is traditional programming. They'll have a real Christmas special, like Christmas in New Orleans, a thing he did. Right. They'll have real, some of the Ken Burns stuff I don't like, but some of it is interesting, jazz, all that. But they'll do interesting and traditional, I'd say in some cases even conservative offerings in local markets. It's the Washington WETA, it's the Boston, it's LA that are in New York that are the big liberal PBS stations. Is there any way that is there a role for the government in this type of offering, a cultural offering at all that could be positive?
No. I mean, look, all you have to do is flip on cable television and or satellite and see that there's so much offering right now. Is that there's no role for the government in funding public television anymore. There's plenty of good quality programming that makes it in the private sector, that turns a profit, whether it's education or history or language or arts or whatever else. Is that it's completely redundant and it's completely wasteful, and there's no reason for the existence of PBS anymore.
And what about the National Endowment for the Arts, or the National Endowment for the Humanities?
If the National Endowment for the Arts actually promoted the arts, it might be one thing, but it's been promoting a political agenda for years. And again, is that the private sector, I don't care whether it's Michelangelo or if it's Whistler or whatever else, is that all this great art over down Mark Twain writing, Maya Angelou, whether you agree or disagree,
Rock River Tree.
Yeah, right.
That was the worst. I'm not going to let you say Maya Angelou in the same sentence as Mark Twain. Thank you very much.
I know. I'm just doing it to illustrate a point. Is that she did it in the private sector without government funding.
Well, because I have some conservative pals who are in the film business, and they actually think that one of the reasons we lost control of the culture, one of the many reasons, is that we didn't actually support great art. We didn't support great culture. And when we have power, we don't do that. And why not do that? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Why not do that in a much more efficient national endowment for the arts? But your point is when the Democrats get back in power, it'll be back to its old tricks.
Yeah, but I don't think art should be played out over politics. I think the market should decide what is art and what is successful, what isn't. It's just as wrong for conservatives and Republicans to push it as it is for liberals and Democrats to push it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the free market has given us a lot of porn, that's for sure. I mean, the free market does all sorts of things. I mean, the biggest moneymaker on the internet is still porn. It's a $14 billion a year industry. So that's
for the
free
courts
market.
To decide. That's for the courts to decide. I mean, that has nothing to do with the NEA.
No. I'm just talking about if we're just going to be laissez-faire about it, and it's a free market, and we see what the free market gets us. It gets us a hell of a lot of porn all over the place.
But
so is there any role in promoting virtue?
It also gets us a lot of beautiful writing and a lot of beautiful painting, a lot of beautiful sculpture, too. Is that there's been porn in human culture going back to the Greeks.
Now, must you drag the Greeks into it? I mean, my goodness, you just drag them into this mess. So, Craig, when you look at the presidency as thus far, and we have all these side issues, I was talking about this at the beginning of the show. You're right. In this first, they always say 100 days, but in the first, I'd say 6 months of an administration, that's when you have your power. Mm-hmm. To me, it seems like the Trump administration has squandered a lot of its power, has given a lot of its power away in terms of PR and branding. That was unnecessary, unnecessary distractions.
Yes, I agree. And there hasn't been a coordination. You remember back in the 80s, there were two things that we really abided by when Reagan was president. One was a line of the day, and the other was message discipline. And you remember is that Reagan was going to give a major policy speech on energy. And so guess what? the word went out via fax and other means to all the cabinet officers, all the the elected officials, all the congressmen, senators, the Republican National Committee. The president is talking about energy today. Everybody needs to talk about energy today. And so everybody was singing from the same song sheet, and everybody was there was just one message for that day, and that was energy independence because the president was talking about it. We used to call it message discipline. You don't have that in the Trump White House, and I think that that's where they're squandering their effectiveness is that it's talking with many different voices, A, and B, they're getting so bollocksed up in the inside politics of Washington. It reminds me of Jimmy Carter and the tennis courts, Is that, no, forget Washington. Go talk to the American people. That's why I think him going out and talking, into Tennessee and Kentucky and Michigan, I think it's brilliant. I think he needs to keep doing that. And that's what Reagan used to do.
Yeah, I like the fact that he wants to stay close to the people. And I think that that's smart to do that. Yep. I would only say that it's at some point it has to move beyond a campaign speech is what it sounds like. It sounded like that in Nashville. I mean, there's some funny lines, but in Michigan but I think you have to expand the pool of supporters and bring people along to the agenda.
He needs to now go to governance. When he's giving his speeches, he's got to talk about, all right, this is what we're doing in the budget. This is why we're doing it in the budget. This is why I need your support.
Yeah, to me, it's drugs are coming across the border. Be more specific. I mean,
right? Yes,
it's all a little too general.
Tell us about what your solution is. He's not telling the American people what his solutions are.
The wall. I get that, and that's fine. But I just think there's such an opportunity here, and I think that speech. Did you like the speech that he gave to the joint session? What was if you had to grade that? What would you?
I'm sorry. Which speech?
The speech he gave to the joint session of Congress.
Oh, I was actually pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I was too.
I didn't expect it to be so good.
I thought it was a terrific speech, and he gave it well.
Show that he's capable of giving a good speech and giving a good focused policy speech. Mm-hmm. So it set the bar a little bit higher, and so he needs to maintain that now.
Okay, next week, by the way, when you come on to talk about Reagan Rising, I am so excited to talk to you about the night, and I know you've written about this before in columns, but the night that Reagan spoke off the cuff when after he had lost the nomination with Gerald Ford standing behind him, and he walks on stage. I'm going to tease it, but he walks on stage. He has no remarks prepared at all. And the place is going crazy. The convention center was in Kansas City, right? Was in Kansas City, Kansas.
Kemper Arena in Kansas City. Zareen was there that night.
What?
Zareen
Okay.
was on the floor that night.
She's always in the right place at the right time. Okay,
yes,
oh my gosh, that is.
I know.
She's even cooler to me now. But we're going to talk about that, how the decisions he made that night, from the time he spoke to his staff, and the only time I've ever seen Reagan come to close to tears was that night he spoke, or that day he spoke to his staff, I guess during the day, and then the space shuttle speech or the 40th anniversary of D-Day.
The Challenger speech.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the only times I've ever seen him tear up. But I cannot wait to talk to you about the book. Craig, you're the best. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're on the mend. Say hi to Zareen. I can't wait to get on the boat with you, but we're not going on a 5,000 person
cruise.
No,
not a cruise. No cruise.
Thanks so much, Craig. Have a great. Oh, you're Irish, right? Does a lot of painting. It looks a lot better with a better frame around it. I mean, a frame, some type of frame, make it look good. Make it pop out of the wrinkled piece of construction paper that he uses. By the way, in just a moment, I'm going to post. Well, I have to send it to you, Drew. I'm going to send it to you. Hold on. I'm going to send this to you. I'm going to post a picture that I just cropped. We'll get to the budget, okay? Just chill out on that. We'll get to the budget and immigration sob stories, all that. Okay, Drew, I'm going to send it to you right now, and then you've got to post this on our Facebook page. I already posted it on a different Facebook page, well, my personal one. But I'm going to send this to Drew. And I want to ask you parents out there this question. When your child refuses to stay in his or her bed and there's nothing you can do to stop it, what do you do? This happens. How long have I been saying this has been happening? Every night for years.
Does sound like a familiar story.
Well, wait till what? I always forget your son's name. I'm a terrible person. Benjamin. Of course I know. Benjamin. Wait till Benjamin is walking into your bed every single night. It happens. They just
guaranteed. I know it's coming.
It happens. And so every single night it's like, remember in E.T., you'd see E.T., the silhouette of E.T. walking across the floor, and it had that funny little
wobble.
Yeah, a wobble, yeah. So, I'm awakened and I see this figure walking through the doorway, shuffling across, and he's half asleep, shuffling across the carpet. And then it's the same routine. I got 2 dogs on my bed. Annie jumps off because she wants no part of Nico pushing her up. Annie jumps off. Jimmy does not budge. He is a bag of rocks. You get the photo? Bag of rocks. Jimmy will not move. So what does that mean? Jimmy's on the other side of the bed. It's a king-size bed. He's on the other side, taking up that pillow. Nico then tries to get under the sheets or the blanket, trying to wedge himself in there, and then you invariably hear this, like, because Jimmy's fast asleep, but he goes, like he's clearly getting shuffled, and he's not growling or anything, but he's like, ugh. Okay, so then you hear Nico go, like he sighs, like, because he wants to get under the. So what happens is he then catapults himself over Jimmy. Like a thud. I have one of those Tempur-Pedic type deals, and so it doesn't make a big bounce or anything, but I feel the thud next to me. He then is over Jimmy on my side of the bed.
Sounds like quite a party you got going there.
Oh no. And then there's a leg that he always, this is what Emperor Nico does. Can you rub my feet? Can you rub my feet, Mama? Can you rub my feet? My leg hurts. It's always like, my leg, I have growing pains. My leg hurts. Could you rub my feet? I said, you should be rubbing my feet. First of all, my foot hurts. I'm in a boot still. You should rub my feet. Oh, okay, I'll do that later. Never does. He manages to get on my side of the bed. He goes, he's not lying the way you're supposed to lie. He goes the other way, horizontal over me. So then what happens? I have no room. I have no blanket. I'm fed up. I get out of the bed. I go to his bed. Who's on Nico's bed? Annie. Annie has now jumped on Nico's bed, is in Nico's spot on the sheets. And that means she has a little short black hair. So I know I'm Annie. I'm just clapping. She's having one of those doggy dreams with her paws are going, she's running across the field or something. Her paws are moving fast. Annie, let's go. So then I have to catapult myself over her to get on the other side of the bed. Then I don't go back to sleep. This is what happened again last night. Every single night, I said, Nico, Mommy loves you so much, but Mommy needs sleep. And then Maria gets mad because she's like, I don't get to sleep in your bed. She's all upset. And I said, Maria, let me discipline Nico. Nico, you can't do this anymore. She's like, you're not disciplining him. He gets away with everything because he's the little one. He gets away with everything. And this is a drama that plays out night after night. And I know I'm going to miss this. Because it's already it's kind of fun, but I'm tired. It's kind of fun, but then it's not.
It's fun after the fact.
Yeah,
once you've gotten to sleep.
No, not in when you can't. You have to get up for the radio show.
Right.
Okay, and I am up. I get up early anyway, but I am not sleeping at all. How have you dealt with as a parent? I mean, and a lot of you have a couple, so you need your couple time. You don't want to. I'm just trying to saw some logs on my own with the dogs in the bed, which I probably shouldn't even have the dogs in the bed. But this is just, what am I going to do? At this point, it can't be a constant negotiation about the position in the bed and the dog on the bottom, I can't deal with it. I just want to read at night. Do my reading, do my writing that I can get done, and I want to go to sleep. How have you dealt with this? 855-40-LAURA. Okay, if you want to save Big Bird, you can call in too. How many of you actually think that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the PBS, is going to get any funding cut? You know what I predict will happen? Oh, they'll get more money from the Republicans. Republicans are going to buckle on this PBS. They're going to buckle on it. They're not going to cut the PBS funding. They're just not. A lot of people, the PBS will go out of business. Well, 855-40-LAURA. Are you going to cry if PBS goes out of business? Should the Republicans fund good television programming? Should the taxpayers, not the Republicans, but should the taxpayers pay for this? Now they're doing this. It only costs $1.25 a person. Okay, then start a nationwide campaign for everyone to cough up $1.25. for a year. I guess it costs $1.25 a year or a day, or I don't know, but it's $1.25. They keep throwing around that figure.
Whenever they show that program, don't they always thank viewers like you for providing?
Well,
it
yeah,
anyway?
they do. Viewers like you can't fund the entire thing. They say there's not enough. There are not enough viewers like us to fund the. I gave to the WETA once. I don't know why. I think I wanted the
tote bag.
I'm one of those suckers who I see one animal show that I like. I see one animal show. You know, I'm a sucker for animals. I saw this animal show on PBS years ago where the tiger cubs were being nursed by the dog. And then that seems like that story is the same story. It just keeps coming back. But I saw that. I was so in love with the tiger cubs getting nursed by a big sheepdog. I was like, oh, I want to see more programs. I sent them like $100. I have never stopped being on that list. They call me. They send me letters. They're like, what are we going to do? You got to be a friend of WETA. I'm like, no, I'm not a friend. I fell prey to this guilt trip once, and I'm not giving any more money. Okay. I have plenty of money to give to. All right. Everyone's calling in about the kids in the bed. This is more fun. Do you want to talk politics on a Friday? I'm kind of spent on politics right now. I've got to say, I'm spent. And don't call in and criticize Sean Spicer on this show. I don't want to hear it. I don't want anyone criticizing Spicer. Criticize Spicer on your own time. Okay. I'm just not going to jump on that bandwagon. It's not easy. Going out there and explaining Trump's tweets. You guys want that job? How many of you want that job? By the way, they're doing a live Saturday Night Live, nationwide live on May 11th. So it's the finale of the season. Finale. They're doing live in this. So McCarthy's coming on. I mean, let's face it. Sean Spicer is a cult hero now for being parodied on Saturday Night Live. I'm sorry about that. Melissa McCarthy is hysterical. Whoever came up with the idea of putting her in that role is absolutely a scream. I mean, the first time I saw it, I almost wet my pants. It was so funny. I told Spicer he should just pick up the podium and throw it at someone.
He actually did make a comment at some point to a reporter. He's like, "Don't make me move this podium."
I told him that. I said, "Bring a super soaker. I'd hit Acosta with a super soaker. Make it fun." And you can say, look, you guys want to argue. Let's just have some fun. And pass out the squirt guns. We're going to have a de-stressing at the White House briefing room. So here are your squirt guns. I have the super soaker, like the M16 of super soakers, and I'm going to get all of you. They just make it fun at some point. You got to have more fun up there. Okay, Jeremy, the Nico in the bed. I'm at my wit's end. I don't think a green beer can save me today. I'm wiped. Go ahead.
Well, Laura, what happens for my three kids and what worked for all of my nieces and nephews as well is that whenever they climb out of bed, you simply pick them up, you put them back in their bed, and you do that repeatedly. The first night, you're going to have to do that maybe a dozen times or more. It's going to be brutal. The second night, if you count, you will notice that it's going to be a few less. The third night, it's going to be a few less than that. And it's going to be a tough week. But probably by the end of the first 5 or 6 days, you're going to notice that it's down to 1 or 2 times. Mm-hmm. And then one night, probably night 6 or 7, the child will not get back out of bed at all, and you'll be home free from there.
Are you going to
work dozens of times?
Are you going to subsidize my chiropractic appointments? Because Nico is a bag of rocks. Okay, he was heavy as a baby. He was big. Remember the first time you saw him, Drew? He is a big boy. You pick him up, it's like a bag of rocks. He has that
and how
mass.
Old is
he? He's 6.5 now. He's a big boy. He's a big Russian. Big boy. You try to pick him up. I mean, a big man can pick him up, no trouble. I mean, Drew, you can pick him up, James. But for a woman, it's not. I'm strong, too. I do like 8 pull-ups. No, maybe not 8. I do like 5 now. I can do 5 pull-ups. But I'm pretty strong, and it hurt. He's getting heavy to pick up. So now what do I do? Do you have an answer now? I mean, am I going to throw myself into paroxysms of agony to pick him up out of my bed? I mean, maybe I should get a dolly or something in my room and lay him on that.
What about do you walk? Will he walk with you back to his room?
I guess if I kick him in the keister, maybe he'll walk. But otherwise, he's like, "Mama, no." But you're right. I'm just going to have to. I'll have to do more squats, do more leg work to be able to lift him up. But it's tough. He's a heavy boy now. It's not the baby Nico anymore. But okay, all right, I get your point. Just do it just be relentless about it. You know why? Because you're right. I give in, and I just get up and it's musical beds. I go to the other bed, and then I never sleep well in the other bed. Never. Okay, so I got that. Donna in Pennsylvania, line 2, calling from Penn State University. Donna, give me some
disregard.
What?
Disregard the last bit of advice. I'm a single mom.
Okay.
I have a baby who was adopted from China. She slept through the night until I put her in her own bed. It took 6 months. She realized she could get out of her bed, and there she was, sleeping horizontal, waking me up, climbing over the cats. I was howling. It's the exact same thing.
Really?
So everyone said, oh, you're going to miss it someday. Just let it happen. But I did do battle like that, and I bet your little Nico has a strong will, and you'll be standing in the hall at 3 o'clock in the morning having fights and battles, and then you're not going to get any sleep, and then you're not going to be able to do any work. So here's what you do. You get on the couch. You sleep on the couch for a good month. The first couple of nights, he'll tap you on the shoulder and go, Mommy, come to bed. And then you just go, leave me alone. And then eventually he'll just stay in his own bed and he'll give up. But it takes about a month of sleeping on the couch. So if you have a good, comfortable couch, that's how you do it.
I actually do have a good...
For 4 years to figure that out. But
oh my gosh.
Okay.
Is this, did you have a little girl? Was it a girl you adopted from China?
Yes, a little girl.
Oh.
She's wonderful. She's a beautiful spirit, but she would do the horizontal thing, and the cat would get ticked off because the cat would be like, oh, no, what's she doing in the bed? And the covers, close all the covers off. Yeah, and I tried going in her bed, and then the cat would already be in the bed, and then the cat would be in her spot. And
right. No, it's
the cat. And
it becomes like a Marlon Perkins situation. You have all the members of the animal kingdom represented in your sleeping arrangement. It's not good. All right, I appreciate that, Donna. Beth, now I'm going to a couch. To me, that seems like I'm going the opposite direction if I'm going into a couch. But Beth, go ahead.
Hi, I went and watched the old season of Nanny 911 when I was going through some issues with mine, and she was a British nanny that had great suggestions too for this problem, but she would sit outside of their door and literally they shut it on like a night vision cam, and every time the kid would just even open the door, she would kind of push him gently back and close the door. And I mean, it happened, I think it only took her 3 nights of doing that, and then the habit kind of stopped. So you may not have to go on a couch for a month, but you should Google or look on YouTube and see if you can find that episode. I know she had, yeah.
It's like enforcing the perimeter. It's like, well, yeah, maybe I could get part of Trump's wall and build that in the hallway and see if he can jump the wall in the middle of the night. Maybe I could put chairs or have a real perimeter. I'm not going to bring Nanny 911 or anyone like it sit in my hallway. That's creepy. But I get the point. You just have to be brutal about this. I'll miss this though. I mean, he'll be a stinky teenager soon and with smelly feet, and I don't want him any near. Now he still smells good. Then the little kid says, "Mommy, smell my feet." I'm like, what? But his feet don't smell. And when they're little, but they get into that teenage. Oh, that's a smell not found anywhere else in nature. That adolescent odor. That is something. So enjoy it while you have the preteen, non-adolescent boys in your house. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Immigration sob stories. Rex Tillerson flexing a little muscle over there. I told you North Korea was going to be our biggest problem. Don't go away. Relationship with our ally, South Korea, is more important now than ever. I am so glad that Rex Tillerson made the trip to Asia, and we're going to have the big meeting with President Trump. I still can't believe he's president. President Trump and President Xi, they're going to meet in Mar-a-Lago in just a few weeks. And clearly one of the top issues beyond trade is going to be what are we going to do together about North Korea. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us. Luke Hardig is a former senior director for counterterrorism at the NSC. He's a fellow in the New Americas International Security Program, and we're going to talk to him about maybe some of the proposed new rules of engagement, drone warfare, and all the rest. He joins us now. Luke, great to talk to you. How are you?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me, Laura.
Let's talk about the Tillerson comments today. I think so many Americans have believed for a while that our biggest challenges lie in the Middle East, when in fact the most dangerous part of the world, in my mind, is right near North Korea, where you have this unhinged Cabbage Patch doll of a president. Sorry to be rude, but with his finger on the button. What's your reaction to the Tillerson comments today?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a prudent conversation that should be happening now, as at the beginning of any administration, as to the range of threats that we face. Certainly, North Korea has been something that's been at the front of our radar for a long time. But I think the immediacy of the terrorist threat, even if the ramifications of those attacks tend to be smaller than a nuclear North Korea, is partly what tends to drive policymakers to focus quite a bit on the terrorist threat.
The issue of drone warfare, 20 years ago we didn't have the conversation. But now when warriors can run armed drones from thousands of miles away and drop bombs on targets that are lethal, can kill lots of bad people, precision strikes, but also that have collateral damage consequences and civilian lives ultimately taken as well. What, in your mind, needs to be done today to perhaps recalibrate our approach to drone warfare?
Well, it's a great question, particularly at the outset of an administration, and certainly it looks like the Trump team is working through those considerations as rightly they should. I think there are a few things that, for those of us who worked on counterterrorism over the last decade or so, really across the last two administrations, realize are sort of central to our approach to drone policy, and that we ought to maintain. And those have to do with things like maintaining protection of civilians and doing our best to make sure that we operate with the utmost precision and discrimination so that we're not causing civilian casualties inadvertently. We know that this is not just a moral or an ethical thing to do, but also that it has strategic consequences. People like General Mattis, when he was still in the Marine Corps, General McChrystal, and others have opined extensively about the importance of civilian protection. So when you look at this administration, they seem to be considering whether the standard that the Obama administration set, which is if you're outside of kind of a hot war zone, is near certainty that civilians will not be harmed. It looks like they're reconsidering that. And I think they rightly should reconsider everything that's in place, just to give it a fresh look. But I think what they'll find, and from the operational professionals, is that protecting civilians is really a critical part of our approach and has served us very well.
And the reason for that is obviously there's a massive PR ripple effect that the enemies of the United States, ISIS, Al-Qaeda in particular, they get a big PR bang every time a civilian dies. They take the photos, they get them online, they say, this is what the United States is doing to your people, to our people, this is why we're here. And I've seen that on those jihadi forums. And that is powerful. That's powerful imagery, no doubt.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that is definitely what they do. But there are other consequences within the local population, right? I mean, if you look at these campaigns, a lot of what you're doing is trying to buy time and space for the local government to have its capabilities and its ability to suppress the terrorist threat on its own. And that means not doing things that make it much harder for those governments to support us and to continue to give us consent to take these actions. And so that's partly why, from a strategic perspective, it's been so important to prioritize civilian protection.
How much, by the way, did the drone technology change from the time you started in the Obama administration to the time you finished? Was there a significant improvement or change in the technology? I mean, it's just so wild for all of us technological neophytes, to think about this, but I'm curious, just from your perspective, how much it changed.
Yeah, right. And so obviously you can't get into the details, but as a general matter, I would say the technology improved substantially over the course of the last decade or so. But also the capabilities of our operators have gotten just so much better. I mean, they've been doing this for so long that they've become so good at targeting and being able to do this with the utmost precision and discrimination. And these are the people we have waging these campaigns are the finest professionals in the history of warfare. And so it's a tribute to the technology, but it's also a tribute to how much they've developed these incredible skills to undertake these campaigns.
So for people to understand this, what the Trump administration seems to want to do is to make it easier to launch these drone strikes. And it doesn't mean the president, and correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, it doesn't it doesn't mean the president still wouldn't have to sign off on each drone strike, but it means the process of getting the drone strike option to the president would be more streamlined. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not privy to what they're actually considering.
Well, it was reported in the Post, the Washington Post. Yeah, the Post had a piece about it.
So I'm reading the same news accounts as you are, and that seems to be some of the consideration. So it might be helpful just to distinguish between kind of the two forms of drone strikes. So there's one where you're acting in a hot war zone, and this is kind of like the Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan context. And then there's an option where you're operating outside of an area of active hostilities. And under the Obama administration, these were designated as places like Libya and Somalia and Yemen. And for those locations where you don't have the same kind of concentration of U.S. forces on the ground, you perhaps have a more precarious or difficult diplomatic relationship with some of the governments in place there. President Obama put in place certain heightened rules and approval processes for being able to take action in those places. President Trump appears to be reconsidering some of those approval levels and what the process looks like. And there are a lot of ways that could come out. It could mean that he delegates greater authority for this down to Secretary Mattis or to others on his team. And they very much ought to consider what the right level of review is. The important thing in that kind of review is that the president or whoever's making the decisions is privy to the full range of considerations that go beyond what the Department of Defense and the U.S. military can consider. So these are things like, would there be diplomatic consequences to taking this action? Would there be an intelligence loss if we did this, or does the intelligence community agree that this is an important target? These are important questions that need to be answered, and the way that the Obama administration did it doesn't have to be the way that the Trump administration does it, right? It's really just a matter of making sure that those full range of considerations are in place before decisions are made.
So here's how the Post reported it. The current Obama-era constraints require that the Defense Department and CIA provide overall plans for killing or detaining high-value terrorism targets, and they take them to the president for approval. The extra layer of bureaucracy that was added to that was designed to ensure that the Pentagon and CIA were abiding by the White House mandated constraints, and there was a consensus within the government on both the need to kill the target and the potential diplomatic blowback of an errant strike. That's what Luke is referring to there. But some critics, particularly in the Pentagon and the CIA, have said that centralizing the process in the White House created an approval bottleneck that has made it harder to hit potentially fleeting targets who are not already on the White House's kill list. And so they say we're seeking ways to accelerate our operations against terror groups and be more nimble and agile in the speed of the response, but we'll always maintain a commitment to minimizing, avoiding civilian casualties. It's a hard balance. It's a balancing act. Like people are listening to this show and they're thinking, well, Laura, you sound like you're equivocating on this. Not everything is political. There is, when you look at these very complicated matters, the technological capabilities and these drone strikes and the lethality, the lethal nature of these strikes, you want to do it the right way. And maybe in the end there is no right way. You learn as time goes on. You certainly want to be agile, Luke, but you also want to be correct as often as possible. So I think when people look at these changes and policies, if these things are going to change, it doesn't always have to be a rejection of what Obama did, but maybe it's just a change because maybe people think it's going to be better. And if it doesn't work out, they'll have to change it back.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it is. I think you hit on a couple of really important points there. One is the apolitical nature of this. I mean, look, when I was at the National Security Council, we in our counterterrorism office, we did not have a single political appointee. These were people who had worked in the trenches on counterterrorism in some way or another, and so the principles that come out reflect that. I think there's always going to be a little bit of a natural tension between making sure that every proposal is thoroughly worked over so that the decision is absolutely airtight and we don't have some of the adverse consequences that can happen when you rush into a decision with that takes time and that time can cost you opportunities, and you want to make sure you don't miss opportunities to get after the enemy. And one more point I would make, Laura, if I could, is that really being transparent about your actions, certainly not in a way that discloses sources and methods or anything like that and compromise our national security, but being transparent and being able to say, this is the action we took. If you can, this is why we took it, and this is what we know. And we don't know the full picture, but we know that we've killed 10 terrorists, and we don't assess that any civilians were killed. Those are the kinds of things that can help us really just make sure that this program is on solid footing when we're taking these actions.
Were you at NSC with Ramana Ahmed and Ned Price? Were they working with you there?
Yes, I worked with both of them.
Were you surprised that they stayed on after Trump came into office? I mean, it was short-lived, but were you surprised that they were asked to stay on?
I don't know the specifics of why they stayed on or didn't. I know that they were both in career positions, so they were certainly not required to resign at that point. But their decisions about staying on or not are really a personal decision on their own.
So, what was the percentage of the career versus the political types at the NSC?
Well, one important thing to understand here is that the NSC is really structured around a series of senior directors, which is one of the positions I held, that run the actual divisions of the NSC, and then a line of directors. And the directors are the people who are really the deep experts on a particular region, on a terrorist threat, on an economic issue, whatever it might be. And by and large, I would say probably 80-90%, if not higher, of those directors, the people who really are the experts, are career civilians or military officers for that matter, but career professionals who do a stint at the NSC and then rotate back to their agencies.
God, it sounds fun.
And they probably serve across the administration.
It sounds really fun. Sounds like that would be a really fun job.
It definitely was. It's such an honor to walk in. I don't care what the administration is. It's such an honor to walk in every day and walk up West Executive and look out at that building and be part of that.
Yeah, for all of us who had the chance to work in the White House, it is awe-inspiring. I mean, it's really cool. Maybe some people get the chance to do it multiple times, but if you get a chance to do it once in any capacity, it's a great honor. Luke, it's a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Luke Hardig, he's now with the New Americas Foundation, the New Americas International Security Program. Luke, come back soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. We'll close out this hour. A lot of you are looking at your brackets. Have your brackets been busted up? Jay only lost one game yesterday. Is that right? One? I didn't do the brackets. I never do the brackets. I did it 1 year. I was out within like a week. Or no, a week, 3 days or something. It was absurd. 855-40-LAURA. We'll close out this hour. Don't go away.